can you all see this presentation? Anyway, welcome to session 2. We're going to be talking about wealth creation in the SEDS today. I can't see the chat, so I will check on it as I can. But if you have questions, just please feel free to just unmute. Like, I think we're a small enough group, we can just chat. So anyway, it's great to see you all. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to have our guest too. Our objectives for today: get to know each other some more, understand how wealth creation can be used in the SEDS process and also in the content, and hear from an EDD that's taken a wealth creation approach to its SEDS. So I'm excited to have Sean here from CCOG, and he will share at some point soon. But first, we're gonna start with our another icebreaker, because I'm trying for us to get to know each other, and I know and yes, we're gonna do this. So I'll start. I'm Melissa Levy. I'm with NATO. I'm focused on wealth creation, and I'm based in Vermont. And my favorite breakfast food is usually a scramble. I like a scramble with like spinach and like cheese is kind of my go-to breakfast kind of treat. So yeah, so let's see, I'm just gonna call on people as I see them on my screen. Lane, you're up.
Hi, Lane Burgess, Southeast Idaho Council of Governments, and favorite breakfast food would have to be crispy hash browns.
Okay. See, I guess we're having this conversation a little too late in the day to actually take action, but thank you, Lane. David?
Yep. Hey, everybody, Dave Struck. I am with the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, and favorite breakfast food is probably a stacked breakfast burrito.
Wow. Okay. Cool. All right, Sean, you're with us today, so I'm calling on you too.
Love it. So I'm Sean Heggie. I'm with the Southeastern Council of Governments, or CCOG. Favorite breakfast food is Eggs Benedict. I am an absolute sucker for hollandaise sauce. That's my weakness.
Wow. Yeah, Eggs Benedict sounds really, I have a thing about eggs being very dry personally, so none of those Benedicts really work for me, but I hear you. Jenna.
Hi, my name is Jenna Kramer. I'm with North Central Planning and Development Commission. My favorite breakfast food is an omelet.
Oh, yeah. Cool. All right. Anything in particular in it?
Pretty much everything except for cheese. I'm not a cheese person. Like tomatoes, ham, anything else. Onion.
Okay. All right. Not a cheese person. Oh my goodness. Jared.
Yeah, Jared Purdue, Southwest Michigan Planning Commission, and typically it's just black coffee. I usually skip food in the morning.
Oh,
Super
yeah.
fun, I know.
Oh, that's okay. I'm not much of a breakfast eater too. Like it's like a once in a while thing, but I do get excited about it. So yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Sharon.
I'm Sharon Asterin, the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments in Oklahoma City. And whoever said hash browns, who was that?
That was
I don't know
Lane.
if I don't know if any of you all are familiar with Waffle House, but there is nothing like a Waffle House, like scattered and browned. Like there's all these different crazy ways you can order hash browns at Waffle House. So that's pretty fun. And my other thing I would say is huevos rancheros, which is basically like your beans and tortilla and eggs and cheese and some kind of very spicy sauce. Again, it's northern New Mexican cuisine, so pretty great.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Waffle House has been a conversation at NATO lately because, and I don't really know why. There are no Waffle Houses like in this where I am, so I have never been to
Oh.
one, but it has been a topic of conversation. Like people are pretty take it very seriously. So
Yeah,
and
it's
they'll
a
be
thing.
interested to hear it came up. Yes. Okay, Cassidy.
Yeah, good morning. It's morning in Alaska, so all
Oh,
of this
yeah.
breakfast stuff is really kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
I could act on this. So my name's Cassidy Cameron, and I'm the executive director at the Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District, South Central Alaska. My favorite breakfast food, it's a toss-up. I'm a Benedict fan as well, like all the Benedicts. Give me the Benedicts. I'm into it. But I also am really into salmon and lox and bagels and like really good capers and like all the dill and stuff. So I'm into that as well. So, but
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Cassidy. Alejandra?
Everyone, Alejandra Bejarano. I work with Region 9 Development Commission in Mankato, Minnesota, Southern Minnesota. I would echo the love for hash browns and Waffle House. I went to school in Georgia and used to love going to Waffle House quite a bit. I would also say arepas. If you haven't had them, they're one of my favorite breakfast meals. They're like a flatbread type of food filled with cheese, chicken, meat. They're really good. So that would be my go-to as well.
Excellent. Okay. Alyssa?
Hi, I'm Alyssa Rodriguez. I'm with Economic Development Consultants, and I get the pleasure of working with Cassidy at the Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District here in Alaska. And I think my favorite breakfast food currently, we have a place in town that makes like a reindeer breakfast burrito. And so it's got eggs in it. It's got some reindeer sausage, has harissa sauce. It's just got it's got potatoes in it. It's a wonderful myriad of delicious breakfast flavors going on. So yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks for being here, Alyssa. Kate?
Hello, I'm Kate Kennedy. I'm from Kane, Pennsylvania, and I'm the director of the Kane Area Development Center. Breakfast is my favorite food. Like Ron Swanson on Parks and Rec said it best when there's no sadness that breakfast food cannot cure. So I love everything that's already been said. But I'm going to say like the classic for me would just be like an egg sandwich. So egg and cheese and either a bagel or, English muffin is like a quick, easy, delicious go-to for me. But honestly, everything that's been mentioned, I would eat in a heartbeat for breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
I'm definitely a breakfast for dinner person myself. My
Yeah.
husband says you can't eat breakfast after noon. I don't think so. But yes. Okay. Edwin, last but not least.
Hello, everybody. I'm Edwin, planner two at the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council. Mines would be French toast for sure. And also wanted to add, I just tried Waffle House for the first time. Even though Florida has had them forever, I just decided to try it this past weekend, and I agree on the hash browns. I think those were one of the best ones I've tried in a long time.
Excellent. Wow. Well, thank you. Thanks for playing my icebreaker game. I think it's just another way to get to know each other a little bit better. But I'm going to keep us moving. So I'm going to reintroduce a couple of things at the beginning of every call just to remind us what wealth creation is. These are the principles: creating wealth, broadly defined, rooting it through local ownership, control, and influence, and building livelihoods by including folks on the economic and social margins. And these are our 8 forms of wealth that we are going to keep talking about. So I just wanted to kind of put them in front of you, and I'm going to keep doing it because they're kind of the basis of all of this. Yes, but anyway, I know we talked about these last time. I think I mentioned that those first 3 are kind of the foundational ones that need to kind of be a part of everything before you can really go far building the others. and that we use them for assessment, design, and measurement, which actually, I mean, assessment, design, and measurement are like the key components of a SEDS, so it's kind of relevant. So we're talking about the SEDS today on this focusing on assets piece, like through the SWOT, through measuring outcomes. We're going to get into value chains next month. We'll start talking about that. But I'm just going to talk through what I've learned about wealth creation as a framework for the SEDS, and then I'm going to have Sean share with you how they've actually done it. But I've done a lot of research and found a lot of EDDs that are using different components, some through the process and some through the content in these different ways. So in the process, I think this is a really neat example, but I've noticed that, in trying to incorporate a lot of different voices into the SEDS, some of this happens through the SEDS committee, and being strategic about how you engage stakeholders in your committee, but also in your kind of community engagement efforts is the way that this is happening. So this is an example I love from Region 5 in Minnesota. This is their actual, they call theirs CREDS. I think it's Comprehensive Regional Economic Development Strategy is why it's called CREDS, but it's basically their SEDS. And this is their strategy review committee. And you can see they actually list folks by the capital that they're most focused on, which I find really fascinating. I think you could also do this by, sector of, the economy. You could do it by, the stakeholder groups that are being represented. Anyway, I think the SEDS review committee is a key way to incorporate wealth creation into the SEDS process. And I put a link to the NATO publication, How to Build the SEDS Strategy Committee, which actually I think was developed before, getting that into wealth creation. But this is a great example I really love using. I think it also comes through in terms of how you're engaging stakeholders in your community engagement. Like I did a SEDS out on the West Coast in Washington State, and it came through in, again, we did, I want to say we did like 3 big kind of community engagement meetings, and those were organized by sector of the economy and also just different kinds of organizations and institutions. So I think you can be pretty comprehensive in thinking about how you engage folks, and that's the process piece. So this is the tool, again, on the NATO wealth creation site, of how to start thinking about either people on your committee. I mean, this says committee, but it could also just be folks that you're engaging, stakeholders that you're engaging in your process. So, are they connected to any of these capitals? And why would they be interested in participating in your work? How would you engage them? So really getting at the value proposition for engagement. So another tool that may be useful. And there's more to it, clearly. There's only 4 capitals, so it's a couple of pages, but that's what it looks like. But more often, the SEDS, the wealth creation, you find more in the content, right? So and this is kind of where they come into play. The asset inventory and mapping, the SWOT, and then evaluation and metrics. So we already talked, you all did the asset inventory and mapping, I think, for our last call. So you kind of understand how that goes. So these are, again, the sections of the SEDS. In the summary background, I mean, that's basically like what's going on, right? What's going on right now? What have we done? What is going on in our region? And I think there is an opportunity here to report the conditions of the region across the 8 capitals. There's obvious ones that that we see in every SEDS: jobs and employment, educational attainment, revenues, income, things like that. But there may be other conditions of natural capital, cultural capital, intellectual capital that can be reported in the summary background. And I haven't really found an example of that, but I think it's something that could easily be done. But again, that's where the asset inventory comes in. That's, again, it's sort of like the what's going on now. Or it could also, you can also think about the asset inventory as the strengths, right? These are the assets we actually have. These are our strengths. And I already shared this with you, and I know Sean will share it too. The spider diagram is a really great way to kind of get a handle on where you're more broadly how your capitals are doing in the region. And then the SWOT really goes deeper. So the SWOT, I mean, that is, I have to say, that's probably the biggest place that I've seen wealth creation in the SEDS. And you can see these are some of the ways we start to think about the SWOT using community capitals. So strengths are basically the asset inventory that we already talked about, the capitals we have, use, or could use. Energy and enthusiasm in different areas, that's definitely a strength, and partnerships are key. Weaknesses make sense, right? Capitals we're missing or are weak. People, firms, and organizations on the economic margins, lack of partnerships. And then, opportunities and threats are really the external pieces, right? Like the things that we can do, but that are impacted by others. Opportunities, underutilized capitals we can invest in. This is a big thing in WealthWorks, which is underutilized assets. And there are so many underutilized assets in so many places. I mean, they can be infrastructure, like underutilized vacant spaces. They can be talent, underutilized skills and underutilized people. Can be any number of things. I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see the opportunities are, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of potential opportunities that can come through in the SEDS thinking this way. And then the threats, ownership by those outside the region, right? We talked about how one of the principles of wealth creation is really that local ownership and control. So the ownership by those outside the region is a threat, or can be a threat. And policy barriers are often threats. So just some hints as to where we're going. So I've seen these, I've said this is actually from Acadiana in Louisiana. They have a SEDS that is kind of has wealth creation kind of throughout, and you can see they've actually done their SWOT across those capitals. And so this is just to show you a piece of it, but so they actually went through the SWOT and went through each of the capitals to say, what do we have? What are we missing? So in this case, you can see individual, like they have skilled labor for these particular areas, but their average education attainment is low. And they follow this through to their opportunities and threats as well. This is just an example. And you can see this is Buckeye Hills in Ohio. They actually identified regional asset-based development as an opportunity and really focus on expanding local ownership and control of assets. Their strengths and weaknesses, they haven't listed out their capitals, but I can see them in this. So whether it's explicit or implicit, folks are doing it. And I think really it really just provides kind of a comprehensive way of thinking about the SWOT to make sure you're getting at all those tangible assets, but again, also those intangible ones. So I know Sean is going to share about this. I'm seeing it in the strategic direction and the action plan too, where there are actually goals and capitals that are identified with those goals and strategies, which is exciting. I'll let him take that. And this is, again, back to Acadiana Planning Commission. This is, again, they've taken each of their goals, actually, and, you know, these are just different ways of incorporating wealth creation. I'm not saying that this is the right way. This is just the way that they're doing it, and I find it compelling. But they actually have a goal for each of the capitals. So, and then objectives and strategies below that. So, again, just another way to be comprehensive. And this I loved, and I wanted to share again back to Region 5. They've really were one of the early adopters of wealth creation, SEDS, and just in general. But I love this this quote: by considering the 8 asset banks outlined in the model, goals and strategies cross typical boundaries by asking the question, who else cares about this? Encouraging collaboration and efficiency and using available resources. And I think, you know, that who else cares about this really gets back to our stakeholders and our partners. And once you start thinking about those capitals, it provides an opportunity to find new partners who also care. And then the evaluation framework, it has been identified as a best practice by EDA to use wealth creation, particularly in the evaluation framework, so that we get past jobs, not that jobs and income are not important, but so we get past it into other kind of broader ideas, and we're representing wealth by all of these different assets. So yes, anyway, this is a best practice of ED from the EDA perspective. And we are seeing it more in the evaluation. So just a couple of examples of folks that are actually evaluating across eight types of assets. And another tool, again, you can find this on the website. I do a lot of work around measurement, and this is something that I actually use for all sorts of, it's just a way of organizing your thinking around measurement. Like, what's the strategy you're trying to, what actions are you actually going to take? What's the actual change you're seeking? It's really important to understand what you're hoping is going to happen to figure out how to measure it. How do you measure that change? The baseline is obviously the first time you measure, and the target, what are you actually working toward? Like, what are you hoping to get to? And then the methodology, like how are you actually going to measure and use the data? You know, where are you going to find it? It helps to kind of be strategic in understanding how measurement is going to happen. And then partners, are there any partners that are needed in the measurement of this, right? Like some data you may not be able to get on your own. You might need partners to get it. So anyway, this is a great tool for just kind of cementing your thinking about how to measure. And again, you don't have to measure across all of these capital. It's just, it really depends on what your strategies are. I mean, if your strategies hit certain capitals, it's important to understand how those are changing. So, yeah, anyway, I just wanted to kind of reiterate a couple of things. These are just, I think that wealth creation can be really valuable for a lot of different reasons. And then I also wanted to share how EDDs are incorporating wealth creation into the SEDS in terms of like just strategies that they're finding. So, you know, fostering asset-based development, encouraging local and regional entrepreneurship. I mean, I'm guessing most, if not all of you are doing this already. You're already supporting businesses. You're probably engaging with anchor institutions and social enterprises. You're enhancing capital access through innovative financing tools and public infrastructure, and measuring wealth beyond jobs. And just a couple of examples. Again, local ownership in the SEDS. It is already here. I mean, whether people call it a wealth creation approach to the SEDS or not, a lot of the key principles are showing up in SEDS, and they're showing up because you're doing them already. Whether you call it wealth creation or not, you're doing it. So continuing to build a regional, local ownership, entrepreneurial community. That's Southern Tier 8, that's in New York. This is another one in Illinois. They're talking about discussing employee stock ownership plans with proprietors. So encouraging local ownership and control of businesses and continuing that. Michigan, local entrepreneurship. We're talking about regional value chains and making sure workforce development so that local residents can access jobs in their places. Here's Alaska. We have sustainable resource management, local ownership of businesses and infrastructure to retain wealth, preserving and leveraging indigenous heritage. So these are things that I started pulling things out, things that I've saw that were like, this is already happening. This is not really, it's maybe not new. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and because I can't see everybody, and oh, Lane's back. Anyway, I just like said a bunch of stuff, and I guess I'm curious, like where you all are at in your SEDS process. Like, are you starting? Are you in the middle? Did you just finish? Like, I would love to hear just like where you're at in your SEDS kind of like trajectory. Yeah. Anybody?
I'll start.
Yeah.
So we are in the process of refreshing, revisiting, upping our next 5-year plan. And that's why I invited Alyssa Rodriguez on here.
Oh, great.
She's our contractor that we're working directly with to do all of it. So we're definitely looking at the last 5 years and our SEDS that we had for the last 5 years to kind of gauge where we were, what went well, did we activate on any of those tenets, and then how are we going to the future, and what shifts have happened in that last 5 years that we need to kind of include in this next SED. So we're doing outreach and engagement, we're doing all of the research piece, and hopefully it'll be completed this coming spring for revision for the next 5 years. Alyssa, I don't know if you want to add on that or anything.
Thanks, Cassidy. I think you did a great job of where we are in the process and that sort of thing. And I do think that the previous SEDS and kind of as I've been working with KPED to create this new 5-year plan. It does, like you were saying, Melissa, have a lot of those like wealth tenets kind of already in it. I really think that the framework is a neat way of looking at it to make sure, like you said, you're not just looking at jobs and that sort of thing. And I really think it's a very cool lens. So I appreciate that opportunity to come and listen and learn, because this is a really cool, I think, different lens to look at it through. That still seems very holistic. You brought up Southeast Conference's SEDS that I've read before, calling out culture and how culture is important. I would not have thought of that, when I was going to come to a wealth creation, learning opportunity. I wasn't thinking that was going to be part of it. So that was really cool. But yeah, I think we're still in that place where we've gotten a bunch of feedback from folks, and then are taking that and really kind of putting it into that more traditional SEDS format. Now that we have all this information about where people want to go and how they think we did and all that sort of stuff.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, anybody else? Where you're at in terms of your SEDS, and or if we're not there. I know a lot of you kind of engaged with this because of, value chains, which is great. We're going to get there for sure. I just thought we'd talk about SEDS because everybody has to do one, right? Whether you're doing it right now or not. But yeah, Sharon.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Unfortunately, we just finished ours and turned it in December.
Oh, wow.
So I had just kind of heard about this through a regional EDA conference, and I was really intrigued, but we were very far down the
Yeah.
road, so
Yeah, of
it's
course.
not incorporated per se. I will say
Yeah.
this, I think this approach, which to me is so much more holistic, is it really fits with the trend of the SEDS evolving into a more vibrant, engaging, readable, shorter document that
Yes.
isn't filled with a bunch of data that nobody, frankly, is ever going to read. And it just, to me, this approach makes it much more like you can really understand and see how you can implement these things, as opposed to kind of that old school model of 90 pages of data and everything is like 1.2.5 point A, point B, and all that nonsense. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think you all are lucky if you haven't done your SEDS like super recently, if you can incorporate some of this stuff, because I think it fits with the trend of where the
Yeah.
SEDS is going.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, I appreciate that. You can always use it for the next one. And I think I think it's just a way of organizing thinking in a really, or it just organizes your thinking, I think, better sometimes and makes sure you're capturing everything, right? Capturing all the things that you may not already be thinking about. You know, like the cultural example. I mean,
Yes.
that's one that, like, you know, if it's a really big part of your region, then you probably would, but culture is really broad, right? And can mean so many things and it means something different everywhere. So, yeah, anyway, thanks yeah, anybody else, anything else on anybody's minds? Yeah.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
We're looking to rewrite ours in 2026, coming out with the final product quarter 4 26 or quarter 1 of 27. There is some fear, I would say, within our organization that a new undersecretary of commerce overseeing EDA may have some different priority areas or continued language that is no longer allowed in a
Yeah.
SEDS. So, I think
Yes.
having some go arounds where you're not saying DEI, but maybe upward economic mobility, I think that's still okay. And just other things that we
Yes.
can
Absolutely.
be safe on. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Language right now is, I mean, I'm sure we're all dealing with it, right? I have to look at everything I'm producing and making sure certain things aren't there. But I mean, we all know what we want. And so as long as we know what we want, whether we're saying it or not, yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, everybody. I think, Sean, I'm gonna call on you to kind of kind of share about your experience. And yeah, I'm really excited to have Sean. He's Southeastern Cog has done a really great job, and I think they finished it I want to say last year. But he'll share more about how that all happened. And I saw I know they had sent it to me and I was like, this is amazing. And what a great example. So I wanted him to kind of share about that process and what that looks like and how it's maybe being used, however you want to do it. But yeah, are you able to
Yeah,
share?
I can share my screen.
Okay.
Let me. Hold on, everything changes because I'm on dual monitors. So okay,
Yeah.
are you guys able to see my beautiful
Yeah.
little
Can you
PowerPoint?
put it into slide?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yep. I got to move things around again because
I
it's always
know.
frustrating because it pops up in different spots. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'll go a little bit about what our cog is, just because a lot of times it's good to know a little bit of background information on the area, especially if you're looking at, doing something similar to what we did when we updated our SEDS and we used wealth creations as kind of a, guiding format for it. So there we go. So for the SECOG region, we are located in southeastern South Dakota. You can kind of see our beautiful little state down there. We make up 6 counties and about 40 municipalities. The unique thing kind of about our region, though, is that Sioux Falls makes up almost our entire population, and the greater Sioux Falls area makes up a majority of our population. So in the 2022 ACS, we had about 308,000. Just in the city of Sioux Falls alone, 200,000 population. So we have a couple of cities on the outskirts of it, Brandon, Hartford, Crooks, Harrisburg, T, that make up a majority of those other ones. That's about 40 to 60 between those others. So just in this small area of our region, it makes up over probably 75 or 80% of the population. So anytime we do any outreach or do any like regional planning, we always have to remember, where a lot of the population's at in Sioux Falls, the responses we get for like, the culture or what they're wanting for their community is going to be drastically different than some of the rural areas that we have. So that was one of the reasons why we really liked the capital of wealth, though, like the 8 capitals, is it kind of got us thinking more on that holistic approach, or where there's different things that kind of overlap one another. So from like a regional perspective, where we have such a difference in lifestyle between, what we say is a big city in South Dakota, which is Sioux Falls, versus some of our rural towns where it's, 50 to 100 people, it kind of can help capture all of those ideas. So to start, and this is where we really kind of shortened it up, we started by doing a survey in our region, and we sent this out to political leaders. We sent it out to, government officials, people that work for the state or for the cities, municipalities, counties, send it out to business leaders, as farmers, as many people that we could, to get as much feedback as possible. The main thing that we did, though, and this is what was really, really nice, and I'm sure you guys see these trends, attention spans for people are very low. My attention span is very short now. I can thank all social media and everything for that. Even my parents who are retired, if a website takes more than 5 seconds to load, they're furious and they're calling me and figuring out what's wrong with their internet. Our old survey that we did back in 2019 was 18 pages long, because we tried as much as we could to get as much information as possible, saying what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what are we doing good, bad, what needs improvements, is it education based, is it, how are the roads, how are all of this. And it got to the point where like our responses were very low from that old go round. So when we saw, the 8 capitals, that really kind of shortened it up, because we said, hey, is there a way in the survey that we can kind of shorten down what we're asking, try to make it as quick and brief as possible to get a synopsis or just a general overview of our area and what people think our strengths and weaknesses, and then asks, for more specific questions, depending on what they say. So we were able to shorten it down to maybe a less than 5-minute survey. So what would have been someone opening up a survey and being like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to take this. They were able to do a very quick, here's less than 5 minutes. Here's where I believe my skill is at. And it provided us a really good overview of where we think our strengths and weaknesses as a community is at. So, however, we had to figure out what is the best way for people that don't spend time in SEDS, or doing these, little webinars or whatever, that don't know about wealth creation or the 8 capitals of wealth. How can we really get it simplified down? So what we found is, let's say what a build capital is, what is a cultural capital, and then let's give some examples from our previous list, because again, we had a large list of things that we were looking for in our region. So we said, here's just the basic definition of build capital, and here's some examples that kind of filled into it. And then what do you think it is? On a scale of 0 to 5, where do we fall as a community? So this really shortened it down. I think the average survey time after they filled it out online was about 4.5 minutes. Now, of course, there were some people that it's going to skew higher because they put up the survey and then did something else and they came back like 3 hours later. And I'm like, wow, you took a 10-question survey for like 3 hours. What were you doing? But general things like that. So we found this to be really effective. There weren't too many questions that we received or feedback we received on the survey saying, what the heck is this? What are we doing? Why is this important? I think the biggest one for us was the cultural capital. I think when you hear cultural, you think like ethnicity or things like that. And our region of South Dakota, each community doesn't really realize that they actually have, cultural capital. It's something that's not really talked about. It's not things that they know. When you think of traditions or historical culture, a lot of ours are small farm towns, and they're gonna say, well, we don't have a culture. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, your whole town drops everything that they're doing on a Friday night to go watch your local baseball team, all this type of stuff go and play. Like that's huge. That's a tradition. That's something that you guys can build on. It's a part of your guys' identity as a small town. So, when you start thinking about these things separately, and I'm not trying to do a sales pitch to all of this, but when you start thinking about these things, kind of how they build together and how they impact, it was a really good tool that we used whenever we got the survey results. We kind of explained to our advisory board when we're going through and creating the SEDS, like, here's how all of this stuff kind of impacts one another. Here's what they do. I did see a question. Yeah, I can share this survey with you guys. I'll share the full page results. It's actually in our it should be in our full SEDS report, which is at the end of the survey. So the PowerPoint should be available. Melissa, are you going to make the PowerPoint available? Okay. Yeah. So there's a link to the survey, or there's a link to the PDF of our SEDS, and it's at the very end. And you can see all of the questions we asked. It's going to look a little bit longer because it includes like what you see on the screen here of the actual answers and the results. So because that 2 questions take up a page, so you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, it's like 10 pages, but really the whole survey was very, very short. Because besides these capitals that we asked, the only other things we really asked are like, what is your business or occupation? So we can kind of gauge, is this an elected official? Is this someone that works for the city or county? Is this, a person that's in banking or healthcare? And then where they're located, because as you can imagine, if there's someone that lives in Sioux Falls, their cultural identity, their build capital is going to be different than a person that lives in the middle of nowhere with a town of 40. So that kind of gave us an ability, using technology to track a lot better where this feedback was coming from. So whenever we took it to our advisory board, we can say, hey, here's some of the overarching stuff we're seeing in our region. How can we make this unique, but also broad enough that it can impact everybody without singling one, community out as saying we're only going to focus in this area. The big things that we found as we were developing the survey, and we kind of anticipated this, is that our intellectual capital and our natural capital were pretty high. We're a big farm, open space. We have the Big Sioux River and portions of the Missouri River that go through our region. So a lot of people like hiking. They like that outdoor activity. We have a lot of just natural farmlands where a lot of people just love, being outside and seeing a bunch of turkeys, in their backyard traveling or, going to these different places. Same with intellectual capital. We have a lot of really good high schools and educational systems in our area. And within driving distance of our region, we have the 2 major universities in the state of South Dakota, which is University of South Dakota, which is just on in relation to Sioux Falls, which is kind of in the middle. It's only about a 45-minute drive south. And then South Dakota State University, which is about a 40-minute drive north. So within 90 minutes, you have 2 major universities in our state. So those were 2 things that scored very high. And then political capital and social capital. It just kind of provides, again, that feedback. So when we got this, and Melissa had this slide on her wonderful PowerPoint too, but we kind of simplified it down. What were the main responses? What do we see as good and not good? And the 2 big ones were natural and intellectual. What's important to note about our region is that we also have a very large hospital system here, and 2 actually really good ones in Sanford, and then Avera, which is like the private religious hospital. There are major hospital chains throughout this kind of, northern Midwest region. So a lot of people visit our area to get healthcare. So that kind of impacts the whole educational system that we have too. After we kind of got these capitals, we sat down with our advisory group as we're, going through the draft and figuring it out and saying, here's where we're hearing our strengths are, and here's the places that aren't so good, which was cultural and political, which we kind of assumed cultural would be there just from people not really seeing. I would say it's more of a lack of opportunity that they didn't see, and ways to look at cultural as opposed to we don't have good culture here. So as we kind of assess those regional assets, we asked ourselves, well, how are we supposed to improve? What are we doing? Because not only do we want the things that are good when we're looking at assets, we want to make sure stay good. And the things that might not be good, we want to figure out how to improve. But we also know if we improve some of these things that could possibly impact the other capital bills. If we start, focusing on cultural, getting festivities and other things like that, where they really build an identity, and people start thinking, hey, I would love to move there. That'd be a great place for my family, for my kids. And the next thing you know, people are moving there, they're having more people. And now you're like, oh crap, we weren't expecting this as fast as we were. Now we need to figure out how to get that build, and that infrastructure in place to accommodate this. Everything kind of matches. And that's what we were saying. So we did our SWOT analysis, and it actually looks very similar to the one that you shared as well, Melissa. But we saw the main thing were that childcare is a huge issue here. I think that's the same place in every state. We've had a crisis like every state. Our legislature has a childcare task force. Multiple cities are trying to figure out what to do, how to take care of that, because it's just becoming too expensive, and housing prices here are incredibly high. Even though our median income is slightly higher than national average, our housing availability, I think like an affordable house here is qualifies at like $340,000, which is just insane for our region. So it's kind of it's definitely an issue. So they're trying to figure out unique ways to encourage people to go into childcare, more in-home options and other things. We've also we approved this plan last year, but threats, natural disaster, that's a big one. We've had very significant flooding in our region. We've had those derechos. So trying to figure out pre-disaster mitigation and what to do, how to respond to that, and funding to help prepare and make things, as disaster proof as possible, to make sure that if something like that were to happen, which it seems to happen very frequently now, that it doesn't completely bring our cities or counties to a standstill. We had such bad flooding that in one of our cities in the southern parts a couple months ago, that the neighborhood basically I don't know how to describe it. The roadway got split in half and went into a lake. And it caused half of this entire neighborhood to just be gone. They were able to get everybody out in time, but that neighborhood now is, all of those people are displaced. They have no idea where to go or what to do. Part of the issue though is that it doesn't qualify as low to moderate income housing because it was near a lake. So a lot of our resources for that are kind of, challenging. So we use these sets to say, here are the threats, here are the opportunities that we have, here's where we can address it, and then here's how it fits with these 8 capital of wealth. So that led us into the development of our goals. So the main thing is a lot of the stuff that we were already doing as a council of governments in addressing a lot of this, it still was applicable. If anything, a lot of this information that we found talking to our advisory group, talking with, going through the survey and seeing the information, it said what we're working on is good. It's good areas. It didn't really come out and say we need to change anything. If anything, it was able to make us, we were able to be a little bit more vague in how we were assessing performance measures and how we were doing our strategy, because it fit under more capitals of wealth. So as opposed to saying we're only focusing on this task, we're able to say, okay, here's some different performance measures, but we're looking at these strategies differently. So, and you can see we kind of had it set up similar to a matrix that Melissa shared, but our strategy is we want to make sure that we're developing infrastructure projects, water, waste, roads, sidewalk trails, different things that impact the community. We looked at the capitals of wealth because as a community, you can say, well, why are we spending any type of local match on this? Or why are we, putting up there? So if we can point and say, hey, here's these 8 capitals and we're actually hitting 5 of them. So this project, is justifiable because we're like, look at these different types of wealths and other areas that we're impacting. It's an easy way for the city or the county, as they're doing this or applying for it, to take it to their constituents and say, this is also why it's important. So it's not just us, we look at it as a multi-tool. It's not just us organizing it, but it's also giving the municipalities and counties the ability to say, this is why this matters. This is why, we're investing in it. Because as you guys probably know, anytime someone increases their water rates or sewer rates, a lot of people will come out and be upset about that. So it's just a way that you can help explain why you guys are taking on, or why a community is going through and doing that. And then in addition, we have it where we have our partners that are listed out. The SEDS is long lasting. If we have turnover, we want to make sure that whoever is able to see our SEDS report understands this is how we're tracking it. This is what we need to be looking at as we're doing it, as the performance measures, but also who are our partner organizations that we can reach out to make sure we're meeting those goals. So this is kind of how we just organized everything together to make it as clean as possible. Emphasis on our last SEDS report was 83 pages. By moving it into this type of format, we cut it down with appendix to only like 50. So we were able to cut off 30 pages of just bulk material of like, here's goal 1, here's goal 1.1, like 1.1, 1.2, 1.2.1. And we really simplified it down because we had 3 goals, which was facilitating responsible community planning and development, which again, this kind of really relates to everything that we were doing already. Our goal 2 was diversifying the workforce and businesses, which really had to do with our 504 loan program that we implement and do. So this is where we still kept the whole jobs retained, jobs created, and then foster community vibrancy and resiliency. And again, all of these kind of talk about the different types of capital wealth that we're doing. So this one was about us doing to governor's houses, low income housing, redevelopment of, different types of houses and stuff like that. So we kind of hit the big 3 that, our council of government does, which is, redevelopment and housing, small business loans through 504, and then any of our land use and zoning planning, plus our grants and loans that we help communities, build. So it just really gave us a very easy way to say, here is what we're doing. Here's where it matches these capitals of wealth. And then here's a very simple way to do our performance measures. How are we doing it? Is it how many, homes are we selling? How many are we rehabilitating? How many grants have we applied for and successfully received? How many projects have been completed in a year? It just keeps it very quick, as opposed to trying to find ways to track this stuff when you're not sure how the best method to show improvement would be, because some of this stuff is just it's hard to track if it's successful or not, except after, like 10 years, then you might really truly know if, it worked out. So finally, our evaluation for it, I kind of talked about the general evaluation tools that we use, which were those performance measures, but we also had the general overall performance, which, is still the investment towards jobs, the amount that we're state or federal investments in our areas, jobs created, retained. And then finally, when we go back around to doing this again in a couple of years, we're going to, in all likelihood, use those 8 capital wealths in a very similar manner, and see if any of them have improved or decreased. What I kind of expect is that a couple of our cultural ones, because we've been working with our communities on, different strategies to promote, festivals or different activities, or like some places are now really big into flag football, that they build fields out there, and that again becomes a weekend activity, and it's just something that they always did it, but now they're actually realizing, hey, we can promote this as, it's part of our community, and people are interested in that. People like to get out and, do things in their community. They feel like wanting to be a part of it. So, I anticipate some of those things to be higher, some of them to be lower, because we are one of the fastest growing regions in the United States. So I anticipate a lot of the infrastructure and road stuff to be probably not as good in the next go around. So, but yeah, that was a big, me talking to you guys. So happy to answer any questions you guys might have. It looked like
Yeah.
you had your hand up, Alyssa.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. I just had a question. You said that you're going to reassess the capitals of wealth in 5 years. So, can you talk about kind of the annual updates and how are you reflecting? I want to say like this lens of kind of viewing the SEDS through the capitals of wealth in those annual updates. What do those look like? Since you're only assessing those capitals of wealth at the end of the 5 years?
That's a great question. So for those annual updates, we're not honestly like looking too much at the capitals of wealth because it is at least in how we've looked at it or assessed it, it's just very difficult to track improvements on those each individuals because they're overarching themes. So for our annual updates, we're really looking at those performance measures to see where we're going. It internally, because we have the performance measures where we can track specific data. Some of the tracking that we do, it doesn't show up in those annual updates, but it's more informal or informational. We can kind of tell how our communities are responding to the capitals of wealth just based off of the everyday or the progress we see each year from different types of projects that they're doing or new businesses that are moving into the area. So we kind of can informally assess it, but I think that year to year, and this could be different from other groups, but that year to year, seeing how it goes in the capitals of wealth, I'm not sure if that would provide as good information as doing it after a couple of years to see where it's trending. Just because I think it fluctuates so much. We also, with our annual reports, because we do our SEDS annual reports, but we also have a couple of state annual reports we have to do. Using wealth creation and using these 8 capitals of wealth, the format that we're doing now, has really made it even easier for us to submit other reports we have to do for like our housing authority and for our governor's office of economic development. So it was done in a format where we can kind of cross some of those other things that we have to do for that annual reporting off through the sets. So it kind of is honestly, it's killing 4 birds with 1 stone, because what we found is as we did this kind of format, it hit the other one. So when we did an annual report, as opposed to having to do 4 separate annual reports that were very similar, but completely different, we've basically been able to take our sets, adopt it for these other types of purposes, and now do 1 annual report for 4 different groups. So it's really sped up the process. So I can't say enough how much this like revamp was beneficial. We've saved a lot of times on annual reports. Let me pull up the chat real quick.
Yeah, there's another question about collecting demographic information as part of the survey. Yeah, that is, I mean, so much of people's, quantifying or qualifying the different capitals is perception, right? So, but yeah, and perception from where you stand in a community. But yeah,
off the top of my head, I'll pull it up real quick. I don't remember if we captured specific demographic information. We didn't in the survey. So the thing to know about our region is we are a very private group. People like to be left alone kind of in our region. Heck, anytime we ask people to do sign-in sheets where we're just asking for first name, last name, email address, just for general tracking of public meetings, people refuse to sign it because they don't want people to have any of their information. So we normally have to find a balance between trying to ask for that. We have had it where when people have to provide any type of information about themselves, they just don't take the survey. So for some of them, we just say it's kind of better to not collect the information and try to keep it as general as possible. We can kind of tell trends because when we ask for like what county they're in or what city they're in, we do have internally demographic informations for each of those municipalities and counties and locations. So we know that there's a higher likelihood of, how many males, females, or whatever responded. But, we didn't track any of that whenever we sent out the survey. I would have liked to. I think that is incredibly beneficial because I think it really does capture a better look at how all of these are impacting different groups because, you know, even though we're a very similar type of people in South Dakota in our region, you know, we are minus Sioux Falls, a lot of farmers, a lot of, um, you know, laborers and stuff like that, that, you know, each person is different. So it would have been nice to kind of collect that, but we didn't when we sent out the survey. Also, just kind of going off of the demographics and other information for cultural, ours was approved before changes, so there might be some dirty words in our SEDS report. So I wouldn't copy and paste everything. No one told us that we had to go and change it, so we're just kind of, you know,
Yeah.
letting it go. But yeah, I would just be cautious. There's some dirty things in there. So, but yeah.
Thanks. Good point. We all have
just
to be more
as a heads
careful.
up, so good, because I think anybody before that approved before 2024 is not having to go back and change. But if you did it in 25, you might have to be
Yes.
modifying a lot of what your SEDS is saying.
Yes, that's totally true. Yeah. Any other questions or anything folks want to share or yeah.
Oh,
I
the
see.
members question I see from Edwin.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. So I guess it depends on who your guys is, who's on your members or boards or advisory team or whatever that you're doing. We are really, really thankful that our advisory team is like our governing board. And we normally have like near perfect attendance at our governing board. So that's been very, very helpful for us. Now they do their best to, answer those questions. But when we get to a kind of our smaller towns, a lot of it is, harassing them as bad as it sounds. You know, we send out the survey or we send out feedback and it's just constantly, trying to reach out and talk to them, ask them questions. And if they're not going to read the full thing or look at the reviews, sometimes it's just a 5-10 minute call to just say, wouldn't say that you're trying to pester them, but just being like, hey, what are you thinking about, this type of strategy or, these type of things, and just, trying to as informally and quickly as possible get that feedback.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So it's definitely a challenge. We have communities where we reach out to and never hear from them, and you just keep doing your best to try to get as much as you can. But you take what you can get, and if not, you try to fill in what you know.
Sounds about right. Appreciate
that.
Great. Yeah. And excellent. Any other questions, thoughts, feedback? This is great, Sean. Thank you so much for sharing. It's, as much as I can share things, it definitely helps to for folks that are in similar roles to share kind of how this all plays out and what it looks like in reality.
When we were doing it, it was always, we always wanted to do it because we heard about it and we're like, this is cool. But when you start revamping, because I mean, you always hear don't reinvent the wheel. Like when you go in and you're starting, we get like an 84-page SEDS from our last time and we're like, oh man, now we're going to have to all redo it. We were able to look at other examples of places that recently adopted and used this, and that really kind of shortened the load because, that to us was the biggest barrier was, do we need to rewrite this whole thing? And when we were able to look at other, groups that were updating their SEDS, that really allowed us to say, hey, this is great. This is a great example. We reached out to a couple other, COGs or other, economic development organizations in the region, said, hey, you had this awesome table. Are you able to just share, send the Word version to it so we can kind of shorten down that time to do it and, obviously modify it to yourself. But,
Sure.
That's what we're here for. Plagiarism's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? Yeah. I mean, well, I was going to ask the same thing that Alejandra's asking is, are there particular examples that were really helpful to you?
Honestly, it's the ones that you guys have been sharing for the past couple groups. So,
So Acadiana.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been the ones that you've shared. A lot of it too is just for us, it was going online. Almost every group that has their SEDS that's out there, we've looked at and we've picked and pulled from some of those different ones. We've also looked at a lot of the ones from South Dakota because they're a lot more similar to, some of the feelings of our state than, others might be. So, I'd be happy to share ours. If you want it, like I said, the link is in that PowerPoint. It's on the last slide. If you just click it, you get the PDF. If you want something specific, I can send you the Word document to it. So that way you can, copy and paste, do whatever you want for it. Just let me know.
Excellent.
In fact, actually, I can just drag and drop it in the chat.
Oh, that's
If
great.
you guys want
too.
that, then
Perfect. And I'm posting these presentations and slides on the page on the NATO website, so I will make sure it's linked there also. But yeah, if you wanted to share it, that'd be great.
yeah, I can do that.
Perfect.
Just so that there's a Word document.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the nice thing about Teams. This chat stays here forever. So you guys, I generally have my issues with Teams, but that is like the big bonus is that this chat lives on. So,
Oh, it's not. Well, that's weird. It's not letting me add an
oh,
attachment to it.
huh. Well, maybe just the URL where it is.
Yeah, I can do that. We don't have the Word document posted on, but I can.
Okay,
send that to
whatever
you.
works, or you can send it to me and I'll post it with all the rest of the resources from today. So cool. Anything else on folks' minds? I'm gonna share my slides again. I thought, let's see. Oh gosh. No, it's cohort. Oh, here we are. So, yeah, thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate that. So,
My
and
pleasure.
I know it really helps to learn how others have done this. Like, yeah, so much appreciated. And we all learn by seeing what others are. And you're right, people copy other things all the time. So, I thought for our homework, these are again at the same link. You could take a stab at the SWOT, like just on your own. Clearly, the SWOT is a group activity, but sometimes it's good to practice like yourself doing it. Or this kind of partner idea, like what kinds of partners would you think about for your committee if you're thinking about spreading the expertise across multiple forms of wealth. So these are both at this link here, and I'll also send them by email to everyone. But I thought we could take a stab at these kind of tools as a way of just practicing some of this. So that's that. Back to our timeline. We're here on session number 2. Our next call is on the 22nd. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that homework goes. And then we're gonna, the next month in November, we'll start kind of thinking about value chains and market opportunities. But I thought it was really important to kind of dig into the SEDS a bit. But the rest of this, our time together will be really focused on, understanding demand, choosing market opportunities, mapping, and all of that. So, yeah, just a reminder. And then again, I like just sharing what we have. Again, this is the original WealthWorks website, which has a ton on it. And then the NATO one, which is where you'll find the homework here in this training materials and resources page. And again, I'm going to keep talking about this. The 2026 Wealth Creation Summit is going to be in Bend, Oregon in mid-April. Pretty excited. We're starting to plan already, even though the annual training conference is next week. So I'm hoping to see some of you in Salt Lake next week. And if not, then I will see you on our next call, which again is October 22nd. So anyway, I'm really excited to see you all. This is me. As always, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm pretty accessible and I love, I'm open to just chatting about how to implement some of these things in your place. And yeah. Oh, and you had, okay, this is the link to the SEDS. Excellent. Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, I highly recommend taking a look at it. Looks really good. I do learn so much by looking at other organizations' SEDS and how they're, so many economic development districts are operating in the same ways, and it helps to see how everybody's doing what they do, right? So I think that Acadiana is another one that I really highly recommend looking at. They also are an example that I like to share because they've been doing it too, and I found actually one thing I do want to share with you. I don't have it. I'm gonna just share the link to their SEDS. But the other thing that it's not the SEDS, but I just want to share it really quickly, is Acadiana also used the 8 capitals in terms of like a prospectus, which is a little bit different, right? It's like kind of a market. I use it sort of as a marketing tool. And so for each of their, I don't know how they split up their regions. They created a prospectus that showcased that area's assets, and they used the 8 capitals, and I can't find it right now, but I will see if I can locate it so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But they actually use the 8 capitals in these marketing prospectuses that were, to market their region for economic development, for business relocation, things like that. And I thought it was really interesting. So I will share that with you all too, just because I find it fascinating. And it looks like Sharon is asking how many folks are using a consultant for the SEDS versus doing it in-house. And it looks like in-house, Jared's doing it in-house, David's doing it in-house, Edwin. Yeah. Anybody else want to share their Jenna in-house? I'll share as a consultant, in my non-NATO time, I am a consultant, and I did do a SEDS, as I mentioned. It was in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State, where they brought myself and rural development initiatives from Oregon in to support their SEDS work. So that's just one one example of someone bringing a consultant in, but and it sounds like Cassidy's brought a consultant in. So nice. Updates in-house, full review and development, use consultants. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. That's a really good question. Yeah, because I think every economic development district does it differently. So great. Well, yeah. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? Anything on anybody's mind? This has been great, though. I really appreciate you, Sean. Thanks for being here. It is really helpful. I am going to try to bring in speakers for each of our, not our check-in calls, but these first calls of the month. I'm going to hope to bring in folks to talk to you about how they're implementing different pieces of this. So, I look forward to that. And yeah. Anyway, I don't want to keep you longer than I have to, but this was really helpful. I love the discussion, really good questions, and it's really helpful to hear where you're all at with your SEDS too. So I will post everything on our cohort page. I'm hoping to do that before the end of the week. Everybody at NATO is crazed getting ready for the conference next week in Salt Lake, so I will do my best. And so you can look for it there, but I will also send you probably an email with just a reminder of the homework and when our call is next. And to those of you I'll see next week, I'll look forward to it. And for those of you I won't see, then maybe I can get you to come to Bend in April. So, okay. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll be in touch. Thanks again, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.